When economic storms gather and tariff threats loom on the horizon, nations adapt. That's exactly what Canada is doing as it rapidly strengthens ties with the European Union. The evidence is compelling. Since implementing CETA in 2017, Canada's exports to the EU have surged by 65% in just 6 years, a direct response to mounting trade tensions with the United States. This strategic pivot is resonating with citizens too, as a recent poll reveals 44% of Canadians now support the idea of joining the EU. Could we be witnessing the formation of a transatlantic economic alliance powerful enough to reshape global trade patterns? The numbers suggest a significant shift is already underway. The breaking point: how Trump's tariffs forced Canada's strategic pivot. Imagine the unthinkable happens overnight. Your closest ally and largest customer suddenly turns against you, threatening the very foundation of your economy. This isn't a hypothetical scenario, but the stark reality Canada faced when Donald Trump returned to power. For generations, the relationship between Canada and the United States has been described as the world's most successful partnership. With 77% of Canadian exports flowing south, this economic integration, once considered a strength, quickly became Canada's greatest vulnerability. In January 2025, amid global trade tensions, President Trump issued his ultimatum: a 25% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum imports, with additional threats targeting automotive parts, softwood lumber, and agricultural products. While announcing a temporary 30-day pause to allow Canada time to reconsider its position, the message was clear: America first would come at Canada's expense. The economic impact struck like a thunderbolt. The Toronto Stock Exchange suffered its worst single-day drop in 5 years, with export-dependent companies seeing valuations plummet by up to 18%. The Canadian dollar weakened to a 3-year low, further complicating the economic outlook. Trump's casual remark during a Michigan rally, "Maybe we should just make Canada the 51st state. They'd be better off, believe me," and subsequent similar statements, touched a nerve in Canada's national identity. These statements transformed public sentiment, with an Ipsos poll showing 91% of Canadians now favored reducing economic dependency on the United States. Prime Minister Mark Carney responded with calculated diplomacy. Breaking decades of tradition, his first international trip bypassed Washington, taking him instead to Paris and London. Speaking alongside French President Macron, Carney declared, "Canada will always value its relationship with the United States, but we must secure our economic sovereignty through diversification." Canada's response has been decisive. Former Trade Minister Mary Ang announced retaliatory tariffs targeting $16 billion in U.S. imports from politically sensitive regions, while filing WTO challenges. The government introduced the Economic Sovereignty Act, allocating $3.5 billion to help businesses develop new export markets, particularly supporting steel producers, automotive suppliers, and forest product manufacturers. The CETA advantage: building a transatlantic economic alliance. As Canada invests billions to develop new export markets, many overlook that the foundation for economic sovereignty was established years before Trump's tariff threats. The Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement with the European Union, provisionally applied since 2017, was once dismissed as a minor supplement to U.S. trade. Now it's becoming Canada's economic lifeline. What began with skepticism about European markets offsetting Canada's American reliance has transformed into tangible success. In 2023, bilateral trade between Canada and the EU reached 157.3 billion Canadian dollars, 106 billion euros, establishing the EU as Canada's second-largest trading partner. The agreement's timing proved strategically valuable. Canadian industries facing American tariff pressure have established alternative markets across the Atlantic. Quebec's aluminum producers demonstrate this shift effectively. They've redirected export volumes to European buyers, forming new supply relationships with EU manufacturers while maintaining production capacity. Agricultural producers and machinery exporters have similarly benefited from CETA's tariff elimination and streamlined regulatory compliance. Mary Ang confirmed this progress. Canada set a target in 2018 of increasing non-US exports by 50% by 2025, and we are on track to meet or exceed that target. This diversification strategy has strengthened Canada's economic resilience during global trade disruptions. CETA's implementation remains incomplete, however. 10 EU member states, including France, Italy, and Poland, have yet to ratify the agreement, along with Austria, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Ireland, and Slovakia. This partial ratification creates uncertainty, discouraging Canadian companies from making substantial investments in EU market expansion and preventing implementation of key provisions. The agreement's value extends beyond tariff reduction by addressing regulatory and administrative barriers that traditionally impede international trade. It creates a framework for regulatory cooperation that allows Canadian and European companies to collaborate on compatible standards. The CDTA partnership continues evolving beyond conventional trade, facilitating knowledge exchange and collaborative problem-solving between Canadian and European businesses, creating innovation opportunities benefiting both economies. Strategic resources. The critical minerals partnership reshaping global supply chains. While innovation and knowledge exchange flourish between Canada and the EU, there's another dimension to their partnership that runs much deeper, literally. Beneath Canada's vast wilderness lies a buried treasure that forms the foundation for Europe's ambitious green energy transition, and Brussels has taken notice. The EU faces an urgent strategic challenge: securing reliable sources of critical minerals essential for renewable technologies, while breaking free from China's dominant market position. This isn't merely about diversification, it's about fundamental energy security in a rapidly decarbonizing world. Brussels has responded with comprehensive legislation designed to reshape its industrial landscape. The Net Zero Industry Act and Critical Raw Materials Act serve as twin pillars in the EU's strategy to secure strategic resources through reliable partnerships. These acts fundamentally reorient Europe's approach to resource acquisition with sustainability at their core. What specifically has caught Europe's attention? Canada's geological vault of cobalt, lithium, and nickel, the essential building blocks of modern green technology. Without these minerals, electric vehicle batteries, renewable energy storage systems, and clean technologies cannot exist, putting European climate goals in jeopardy. Canada's mineral endowment couldn't be more timely. The country possesses significant reserves of these precise resources, positioning it as a natural partner in Europe's green transition, while transforming Canada into a strategic asset in a geopolitical landscape where resource security increasingly defines relationships. This mutual interest crystallized in 2021 with the EU-Canada Raw Materials Partnership. What began as a framework has evolved into a comprehensive strategy for sustainable supply chains, expanding to joint development initiatives and technology transfer. In communities across Northern Ontario and Quebec, this partnership translates to responsible development that balances economic opportunity with environmental stewardship. When the relationship reached a milestone in July 2024, with Canada joining Horizon Europe, it extended the partnership from extraction to innovation, reinforcing collaboration built on shared values and sustainability. Beyond economics, the surprising political implications of Canada's EU pivot. Those shared values have crystallized into something few political analysts could have predicted. What might surprise you about Canadian sentiment toward Europe? A recent Abacus data poll from February 2025 unveiled a startling reality. 44% of Canadians now support joining the European Union, while only 34% oppose it. This represents a fundamental shift in how Canadians perceive their place in the global order. This unprecedented support for a transatlantic political union reveals much about evolving Canadian identity. The preference for membership in a European political bloc highlights the growing psychological distance between Canada and its southern neighbor, despite the geographic impossibility of such a union. European Commission spokesperson Paula Pinto diplomatically acknowledged these findings, noting that the EU and Canada are like-minded partners which share many values and also strong historical connections. Expressing that the EU was honored with the results, she interpreted the poll as evidence of the bloc's global attractiveness, suggesting Canadian public opinion is reshaping international perceptions of European influence. Practical barriers to integration remain substantial. Article 49 of the Treaty on European Union limits membership applications to any European state, respecting EU values. Geographic boundaries matter. Morocco's application was previously rejected specifically because it wasn't considered European. Prime Minister Mark Carney has reinforced this distinctive Canadian identity, emphasizing during his first official European visit that Canada is fundamentally different from America and will never ever in any way, shape, or form be part of the United States. These statements reflect a deliberate effort to distinguish Canadian values internationally while aligning the country's economic and social policies more closely with European models. This European orientation builds naturally on Canada's colonial foundations under both France and Britain. Parliamentary democracy, bilingualism, and social policy approaches all bear European hallmarks that distinguish Canada from American models. These historical connections have quietly sustained a transatlantic affinity that current circumstances have brought to the surface. The question remains whether this sentiment represents a temporary reaction or signals a more permanent realignment in Canadian foreign policy. The depth of public support suggests something more profound than short-term frustration. Conclusion: what we're witnessing isn't merely a temporary adaptation, but the formation of a new geopolitical reality. The EU's confident stance: we can trade with the whole world. If you close your markets, we have other partners, reverberates with Canada's own evolving strategy, reflecting a fundamental shift in economic power dynamics. Canada's pivot toward European markets represents a permanent strategic realignment. This diversification promises to transform Canada's position in global trade networks, with forecasts indicating substantial growth in EU-Canada commerce. This transatlantic partnership demonstrates how shared democratic values forge resilient alliances beyond geography. Will this new center of influence permanently reshape North American economic relationships in the decades ahead? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like us to stay informed about our content.